Hello and welcome on in, everyone. Today I have got my first New World build for you guys. I uploaded a PvP commentary recently and you guys really liked it, so I played a whole bunch and I got enough footage to put together a build video for you guys as soon as I could. And this is my Firestaff Rapier Intelligence build. This build is very fast, it's very kitey. We've got two different gap closers or teleports. We've got a lot of damage over time, and then on top of it we have got some savage backstab rapier burst. There, you guys can see it. So it's pretty much a damage oriented build, and we're going to be using all of the mobility and the dodging that we can in light armor to stay alive. Keep in mind that this is a beta build, so I don't have this guy fully leveled up. There might be some things missing to the build craft that we haven't gotten access yet to either. And of course, we've got a lot of gameplay footage at the end of the video for you guys. And I've got a link to some more gameplay footage in the description if you guys want to see it. Without further ado, let's take a look at that build. So to start off, we're going to take a look at the attribute page, and we have stacked nothing but intelligence on our attribute page. We have a little bit of points from a few other things like item buffs, etc., but for the most part, we have got just intelligence on this build. Now, the reason we've gone this route is because we scale our Firestaff and our Rapier damage off of intelligence. The first question that people are going to ask is, do you lose damage scaling with intelligence over dexterity? In short, yes, you do. You lose something like 10% damage by going the intelligence route. That being said, we're running an elemental gem on our weapon, and the elemental gem converts part of our weapon damage into a fire attack. This actually scales off of our intelligence, so the amplified damage on this gem here actually makes up for the loss of damage that we get from not going for dexterity. So at the end of the day, I actually think that this is not only a viable, but just as strong route as going for dexterity. This might actually be even stronger. You'll see in the footage, the elemental portion of our rapier damage actually does quite a lot of damage. Now you can see we also have 30 points of constitution here too. That's because our gear traits are actually a mix of intelligence and constitution. In PvP, hit points are always important. That's basically how much damage you can take before you die. And in this game especially, because your healing potions are going to scale directly off of how many hit points you have, having more hit points is incredibly beneficial. We are definitely pretty glass cannon like this. You don't have to go this high damage on the setup. You could definitely stack more points in Constitution if you wanted, for example, so you at least get 20% stronger healing on your consumables and stuff like that. But this is, of course, a beta build, so we're not even at endgame. Of course, if we were at endgame, we'd have probably the first couple of these passives anyway, and then a whole bunch of other stuff as well. As for the intelligence passives we get the plus 10% damage to light and heavy magic attacks. I don't know if this affects the elemental portion of our rapier damage. If it does, that might explain why we're dealing so much damage with it. But it does affect our Firestaff on the back bar, which is great. And then the next one, we have a 10% increase to critical hit damage. This is particularly nice because you get a guaranteed critical hit when you backstab your opponent, and the Rapier has a bunch of abilities that make it very easy to get behind someone and deliver those guaranteed backstabs. So this is nice for both of our outgoing damage. The Firestaff as well has innately a little bit higher of a crit rate thanks to some of the passives that it gets too. Alright, so let's take a look at the gear that I'm running on this guy. We're going to start off with our weapons here. We have got the Syndicate Scrivener Rapier, and we've also got the Syndicate Scrivener Firestaff. And yeah, these are basically the weapons that you buy from the faction vendor. This is how you want to get your gear early game. There's battle leveling in PvP, so if you have gear that is around your level, then you will be pretty strong. Even if you fight a higher level player, you will actually have a fighting chance against them. Obviously, the higher level player, I think, will have advantages over you to a degree, but at least you're not going to get completely swamped. So even the level 15 gear from the vendor is going to do it for this build too. That's what I was using, honestly, till I just very recently upgraded to this stuff, because I did hit level 25. Now, for the enchants on these guys, I've gone with Ignited on the Rapier, and I've gone with Electrified on Shock. From my testing, the enchant of choice here would actually just be Arcane, to have your weapons deal additional, I guess, just magic or arcane damage on the weapon. That was the strongest enchant. That being said, I haven't gotten any sapphires since I took that enchant off my old weapon. and I haven't been able to go back to it. Fire and electricity were the next best ones that I tested, so I have those on my weapons right now. We are an intelligence build. These ignited and these electrified traits will scale off of our intelligence, which basically gives it a huge amount of increased damage versus if we didn't have this trait on here. A really good choice for an intelligence-based build to go with these elemental enchants. And then these are both enchanted to increase their light and heavy attack damage by 7%. I mean, we're in the beta. You're not going to be able to have a lot of different trait choice at this point unless you've been rapidly crafting your weapons or something like that. Enchanted from the vendor is more than fine, especially on the Rapier. It's actually a pretty desired trait because a lot of our damage comes from our light and our heavy attacks. When we take a look at the gear here, we have got the full Syndicate Scrivener outfit as well. And then I've got a mix of the medium and the light armor here too. Again, if you have the level 15 gear, thanks to the battle leveling, that will work out more than fine. And when we take a look at the traits on these guys here, I've actually retraded them all to the Occultist. When you go to the faction gear vendor, they actually sell seals that allow you to change the Constitution and Intelligence traits to whatever you want them to be on that particular gear. It's very cheap to buy them, and it's very easy to upgrade them. It costs a little bit of Azoth to do, but if you've been playing the game and killing things, you should be able to generate the Azoth you need to fairly easily trait out all of this gear to the trait of choice. And this is all Constitution Intelligence because we need to be having as much intelligence as possible for damage. Constitution as our secondary stat. Hit points very important in a PvP environment. When we did retrait the gear, it changed it all to Resilient. Now, this is not a bad trait for PvP. Critical hits will deal a total of almost 20% less damage to me with this armor set on, making it a very useful set against an opponent who's going to do something like backstab you. I don't think a lot of people are going to have like crazy crit builds this early in the game or anything, but you know, for a beginner build, I think this is awesome because backstab is a guaranteed crit, and this helps soak up the damage from that 100%. And then we've got a whole bunch of random gems on here. I just went with whatever could reduce elemental physical damage. This was a good choice because it was both of them. Ideally, I think there is more physical damage in the game, so having more physical damage reduction would be better. And then on top of it, we've got some thrust absorption as well, and some strike absorption from the 2 gems here. Pretty much just put whatever defensive gems you have that makes sense. All of them aren't terrible options. I would say maybe stick away from specific elemental damage reduction, but strike, thrust, absorption, you can't go wrong with that in PvP. You got a lot of people using a variety of different physical weapons. And then when we take a look at our piece of jewelry here, it's got +7 intelligence. I did craft this guy. We got a lucky craft on it. And then we've got some slash ward on it as well. Now, something I did want to mention about the armor is that we are a light armor setup. We have to be below 15 weight in order to maintain our light armor setup, which gives us that full dodge roll when we use our dodge key. Very important that we have a good dodge roll for mobility on this guy, I think. Now, we're not wielding a shield. That's a big reason why we can wear the 3 pieces of medium armor that we have here, as well as the 2 pieces of light armor. I'm not really sure if it's best to not wield the shield or not end game, but at least in early game, especially if you're level 15, the gear that you buy from the vendor is so much better than the shield you get from the vendor. So stick to the better gear, upgrade its weight so you get more armor, forget about the shield altogether. It doesn't even give you any really desirable stats or traits early on. And then I think maybe later on with this build, we might transition into more light armor and eventually wield a shield for the additional intelligence that it could provide. And last but certainly not least, we got to take a look at the consumables on this build. Consumables are a massive part of success in PvP. If you don't have good food and potions, you're not going to win fights. That's just how it's going to be. You'll be fine up until you take too much damage, and then you have no way to really recover or heal yourself effectively. So the combination of potions that I use on this build are going to be the very weak health potion. We've got the tier 3 strong healing elixir, and then we've also got some common regeneration potions. The common regen potion is one of the easiest regen potions to make. The materials for it can be a little bit rarer to find, but it's a lower level potion. You don't have to level up your arcana too much to make it. And the regen that it gives you is incredibly useful for combat. the big thing about these two potions is that they are different kinds of potions, so they have independent cooldowns. You can use both of these independently of each other while in combat. Having the 2 heals like this is a huge, huge deal. These strong healing elixirs as well, these are actually very easy to get your hands on. You can just buy them with faction reputation tokens, just from doing your faction missions. They cost a little bit of gold too, but these are probably the best and easiest way to get good healing early in the game that I've been able to find. And then for the food, we have the light meal. Obviously, if you don't have the tier 3 light meal, that's fine. Any of the meals will work here. You just want to make sure you actually have that health recovery buff up at all times. The better the meal is, the more amount of healing that you'll get when you use the food in combat. Because we're playing a kite build, you can actually heal a lot with these foods while you're in combat. So, yeah, they're a great option if you want to have some more supplementary healing. And then finally, I did have to mention the weak health potion. They're incredibly easy to make, incredibly easy to get. You can literally make 100 of these right out of the gate from the beginning of the game just by picking a few herbs and collecting water. So yeah, these are just a great general healing potion. If you don't want to use the expensive one, this is a good option too. So now we're going to take a look at the weapon skills we're using on this build. We're going to start off with our main weapon, the Rapier. This is basically our close quarters weapon. It deals a ton of damage if we can get on top of somebody with it. That being said, there's a lot of players running things like Hammer, Great Axe, and Spear right now. And it can be pretty tricky to approach a player like that. You have to watch their attacks, dodge them, and then try to get on the inside, or try to force a good combo by using the gap close to get behind them or something like that. Needless to say, if we are very close, we will out DPS pretty much every other weapon in the game. I don't know if there is a higher close quarters DPS weapon, but man, Rapier does a ton of damage. So let's take a look at the abilities we're using. I'm actually going to start in the Grace Tree, and we're going to take a look at Evade. This is your most important skill for the Rapier early game, I think. If you're going to be starting this build at a lower level and you don't have access to a lot of different points here, definitely start with Evade. This is not only a great move because it gives you an extra dodge every 6 seconds, making you essentially more kitey, but the Evade itself can actually animation cancel any ability that you're using, unlike your roll dodge. So if you commit to a heavy attack and you find that you need to get out of that heavy attack before you finish it, you can't cancel out of it with a roll. However, Evade will cancel that heavy attack and allow you to dodge the attack. Just the way that this ability works, it makes it really easy not only to combo defensively, but even combo skills offensively. You can do something like a light attack and then click the Evade forward and a very fast light attack again right away, and you can essentially do a double light attack like that. And you'll see in the gameplay when we get some good Evade combos on players, it allows us to put big damage into them. And then the defensive utility, I mean, this is, in my opinion, Rapier's best skill, I think, for sure. Now, when we take a look at the things you gain as you upgrade your Evade, you get 20 stamina immediately on use. This is really nice because you essentially get an extra dodge roll in your Evade combo. So 3 rolls plus the Evade makes you very mobile, especially in close quarters. And then we've got Allegro, 20% movement speed after you use the Evade. This is fantastic. Mobility in this game is very important in PvP. If you are faster than your opponent, it makes it a lot easier to stay alive, and it makes it easier to hunt your opponent down and kill them. So really good there. And then we've got Adagio, which is going to give you a 15% damage increase when you evade forward on your next light attack, and that'll end on hit or after 1 second. This is where that light attack combo comes in. When you use any skill essentially into the forward evade and follow it up with that light attack, nice big damage increase on that. And then we've got Crescendo. Individual light attacks reduce the cooldown of this ability by 30% each. This is probably the best upgrade to Evade out of all the things on the list. A lot of these upgrades are really great, but Crescendo allows you to basically do 3 light attack chains, and then your Evade is ready again. So you can use your Evade every 1.5 to 2 seconds or so. And this is a really good ability because it allows you to be very aggressive with Evade and essentially use it like an offensive skill by constantly chaining light attack combos faster than you could if you weren't using the Evade. On top of it, you're actively dodging and even spinning around behind your opponent to get those guaranteed critical hits from the backstab. Yeah, the Evade move, absolutely amazing. Gotta start with this guy. And then let's move on to our next active skill, and the next most important skill I think you get for this build, and that's Fleesh or Flesh. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. But anyway, you leave the ground lunging forward 10 meters in a stabbing piercing motion, and you pierce through enemies dealing 145% damage. This is a very strong gap closer, and it's an AoE, so you'll hit everybody that you fly through with this. Not only is this great for getting on top of an opponent, but you can use gap closers defensively to get away as well, so making it a very useful all-around skill. Fleesh is particularly nice because you can actually cancel it into an evade as well. So you can do the Fleesh into the evade dodge like that, and it allows you to have a very quick kind of rapid direction change from where you were originally sitting. So just a great mobility move all around, not to mention the amount of damage that it does. And then when we take a look at the upgrades for it, we got Quick Lunge. Killing with this ability will reduce its cooldown by 80%. This is really nice, and it combos really well with the last upgrade of this skill too. But it is great because this is essentially a 3-second cooldown when you get a kill with this skill. The next one we have is Backside. After performing Fleesh, your next critical strike will have its damage increased by 15%, and that's on a 5-second timer. That is particularly great, again, with the last part of this skill, and that's Interruption. Pressing a light attack at any time during the Fleesh will stop you and perform a static continuation attack that deals 115% damage. So we can get some huge light attack damage combo at the end of the Fleesh, and you can even cancel that with an evade into another light attack, essentially getting the gap close into a double backstab very quickly on an opponent. This is incredibly good for finishing in PvP because not only can you close the gap, but you can get behind the opponent and then go for the double backstab with the evade cancel at the end as well. And these are going to be guaranteed crits, and you're going to amplify the damage on both those light attacks thanks to the skill passives. Yeah, this is made for that quick poke and get away. Really like that setup. And then taking a look at the last skill we have on the Rapier, we actually have Tondo. And this is just going to apply a bleed to opponents in front of you. It has a pretty decent amount of range too, so you don't have to be right next to your opponent to use this. I like Tondo for the bleed because it pairs really well with the Fire Staff backbar, which has a lot of bleeds as well. This build, essentially, we kite around, apply our bleeds, and then when someone's hit point starts to get a little bit lower, we go for that Fleesh into the evade backstab combo to finish them off. Of course, upgrading the Tondo Bleed will allow you to reduce the cooldown of the initial attack. If you hit somebody, you'll get even more cooldown reduction on the second upgrade, 25%. And then on the last upgrade of Tondo, you'll improve your direct damage if your opponent is more than 4 meters away, essentially doubling the initial hit of the attack so it's equal to the damage of a light attack. This is the one skill where I would say it's definitely your flex spot for this build. I know a lot of people are liking to use Riposte. It's particularly nice for PvP because you can get a good counter with it. The downside to Riposte, though, is that it doesn't seem to work against magical attacks. So, yeah, there's a lot of people using magic right now, especially healing staff. I see a lot of people in PvP healing each other and then constantly blasting you with this staff. I do like Tondo because of the additional pressure it can apply. So there we go. But really any of the Rapier skills you want to use here, go for. Flurry, actually, maybe not, because you can deliver a lot of damage with our evade combo anyway. Now, the passives that I've chosen, obviously, I mean, you want to go for all the passives that you can. The important ones we have, though, are going to be Swiftness for the additional movement speed on hit. This is really nice because it stacks with our other sources of haste, and honestly, movement speed's so good for PvP, especially in close quarters, just giving you a little bit better footing, definitely beneficial. We've also got On Guard here for the additional damage if our opponent's above 50% health. This is nice if you want to deliver that backstab combo at someone who's at full health, just to put them in a dangerous spot really quickly. And then we've also got the Unerring. Deal 5% more damage to a target that is affected by your Rapier Bleed. Nice because we have Tondo, of course. And then we've got the Light Edge. Increase the damage from both the middle swipe attacks in the light attack chain by 8%. This is nice, of course, because the 2 middle light attacks are very fast, and that's a big part of getting our 3-attack evade combo into the crescendo, so just amplifying the damage there again. Ideally, I would like this heavy puncture as well to continue to apply the bleeds, and then for these last two here, you can actually only pick one of them the way that the points work out if you fully upgraded your weapon. I would definitely go with Momentum, 25% increased damage on your next light or heavy attack after performing an ability. That combos with our Fleesh into the backstab and then as well as the evade into the second light attack as well. That would actually be a huge damage amplification from what we have right now, so yeah, definitely a good option. Alright guys, so let's take a look at the Fire Staff page that we're running here. The first ability we have and the only ability that we have is Burnout. Now, There's a reason that I'm only running Burnout right now. It's because we're on the beta, and honestly, I just don't have the levels or points to put in. I really wanted to invest into this skill in particular, as well as increasing our light attack and burn damage. So let's take a look at it. You dash through your target, dealing 129% weapon damage on hit, and they will also catch them on fire, dealing a burn that deals 10% weapon damage each second for 8 seconds. We get a 20% increased duration on that thanks to Kindle, so it's actually a 9.6 second burn, and that's going to be about 96% weapon damage, I guess, over time. Really nice stuff. A good, powerful initial hit on our Fire Staff, followed up with the Dot. This is usually the first skill that you'll use to engage with people when you want to start your combo, because it's just a great upfront hit. It's very hard for people to avoid this because it's a very fast skill, and then that burn is just going to allow you to kind of lean into the rest of your combo, I guess. Now, when we look at the next upgrade for this skill, the Fire Staff cooldowns are reduced by 5% for each foe hit by burnout. Absolutely fantastic. If you have a lot of players attacking you, that means that you're just going to be able to use this skill more often. And then we've got Heated Up. Burnout goes 50% further. This is very, very important. Mobility is the name of the game in PvP. When it comes to surviving, it definitely helps to be mobile. So having that extra distance on the teleport is a really huge deal. So if I have an opponent running at me from this direction and I want to get away from him, if he's standing right about there and about to attack me and I use the teleport to go through him, you can also cancel it into the roll so you can get out of the teleport a little faster. Then we can essentially make him turn around. Maybe he'll even take a few steps or attack in the wrong direction, and then we break all this distance from them. That's really the power of these teleports, and yeah, great utility skill, great offensive skill, great defensive skill, absolutely amazing all around. Now, taking a look at the passives we've chosen, the first one that I think you should get is Combat Speed, to increase your speed when you use your Burnout ability. This is just important. Again, movement speed, so important for PvP. And not to mention, if you start putting more Fire Staff skills on, you will have that 10% haste buff up fairly often too. Of course, the Kindle for the additional burning duration. We talked a little bit about that. It's a very important passive because it also works with our Watch It Burn. Light attacks cause the enemy to catch fire, dealing 3% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. This burn also stacks. I don't even know how high it stacks. Usually I put about 7 stacks on something and then it's dead. So yeah, that's a pretty big deal. That's an 18% damage increase over 6 seconds on your light attack. Really nice stuff. And then we get an increased duration again from Kindle. Even better. Let It Burn is a really good passive too for the Fortify for 2 seconds after you light something on fire. You'll be doing that a lot on your Fire Staff bar. So yeah, the increased armor, absolutely amazing. And then Pyromania is the first skill that I use to kind of start the Pyromancer tree. I like this a lot because I'm PvPing a lot, and oftentimes in PvP, you're going to find yourself below 50% health. 20% damage increase on your gap closer just to make your combo hit that much harder. Definitely can't go wrong with that. And then I also liked the Trial by Fire passive. When you're struck, you create a field of fire around you, dealing 5% weapon damage to all nearby enemies in a 4-meter radius. This will stick to you even if you swap to your other weapon bar. This is just nice for that initial confrontation. Honestly, kind of the least important passive in our Pyromancer tree at the moment, but you know, you can't go wrong with a little bit more AoE damage, especially on this bar where we want to put out all that AoE anyway. And then when I take a look at the Fire Magic tree, we've got the Fiery Restoration. For heavy attacks, reducing your Fire Staff cooldowns by 10% on hit. That's nice, again, if you want to get some more teleports out. We've got Clear Mind. While above 50% mana, you gain 10% in power, which is a 10% damage increase. Again, really nice because we're not using a lot of skills, so we're usually above 50% mana, allowing our Burnout to hit even harder, and the Dot to do more damage. And then we've got Singe. When you deal a critical hit with the Fire Staff, you cause burning, dealing 3% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. And that's just playing more on our burning game. We want to put as many dots as we can with our Fire Staff bar here. Particularly nice if we get a crit with our initial Burnout hit, then we get even more damage over time on it. The next passive I'm definitely going to go for is Spell Slinger. Your abilities gain a 15% increased chance to critically strike. The Prophet of a Fire God for even more critical strike damage while we have the Fire Staff out. Can't go wrong with that. And as for the final abilities here, honestly, I don't think any of them really synergize that well with the build. The only one I could think of is maybe Reheat, because you'll switch to your Rapier bar and then maybe kite a little bit and your mana can rapidly shoot back up. That one could be particularly useful if you're going to use a lot of Fire Staff skills. Outside of it, though, I do really like some of these other passives more. And then the abilities, again, you know, I didn't use any of them because we just wanted to stick with the one skill we really wanted, and then the burning from our other skills. But you could go with any of the skills you want here of your choice. Yeah, except maybe Flamethrower, because that one roots you pretty bad. Not the best for PvP. All right, guys, let's get right into that PvP commentary. So this is actually one pretty long continuous clip. I went out into the PvP zone and I got into quite a few fights here. So we're going to start off with the beginning of this trip. We just see the first yellow player. There's another player in the distance there shooting us with his rifle. And we just kind of kite down the side of the hill just to avoid the rifle fire from the other player, slowly closing the gap while we move back and forth. And then we go for the Fire Staff teleport into the Rapier gap close to get behind this player. And there you see we cancel the light attack into the evade, the second light attack, a huge backstab on that guy. And we drop him from full health within a few seconds there. And then we just do the same thing. We strafe towards this next player and we just approach. But he has got his guard up. He's holding that shield. Now, this was my first time really experiencing having to fight someone who just held block the whole time. So I'm just kind of feeding him heavy attacks. You can see that orange stamina bar slowly going down for him. And he gets the block in time as we go for the gap closer, so we don't get the damage on that. He manages to block the attack from our Fire Staff there too. In between his light attacks, we feed him a couple Fire Staff heavies, but we know we're going to have to feed this guy heavy attacks in order to drop his guard. I just start doing the heavy attacks after the dodge roll. He's closing the gap into us. I start feeding him a few light attacks. We quickly dodge out of there, go for the gap closer to break some distance. And I want to hit him with that staff teleport, but he actually interrupts me as I go into him there. So we get bonked off of him, and then we just keep kind of playing the distance game here, just feeding him those heavy attacks. The Rapier heavy attack has a little bit of distance on it. We can lunge in a little bit with it, and it looks like mutually we are definitely exchanging better than this guy too. Our sword does quite a lot of damage, even against these heavy armor players. I think it's because they might have lower elemental resistance, and we got a lot of elemental damage all over. We managed to land the Fire Staff teleport there, and I just kind of reuse my supplies, get a nice heavy attack. Again, he's holding block here. He blocks that next attack. Stamina very low, and I just start feeding him the light attacks, eventually dropping his block. And we give him the poke to finish him off. And another player has shown up, and he starts throwing spears, shooting us with the gun. He goes for his, tries to close the distance with his spear there. And I try to go for the Fire Staff teleport. We both miss. I get the Rapier teleport. Unfortunately, not as behind him as I wanted to, but he is not ready for the amount of damage that this weapon can put out. We very quickly put a lot of pressure into him, and he's just going to try to keep us back with that spear there. I feed him the heavy attack just to kind of force through his guard there. Back up. Good read on the interrupt there to avoid it. And we just keep kiting around him, hit him with the bleed there. He's doing a good job kind of hopping around. I definitely think I personally need to practice a lot with my positioning and aiming when we're in melee range. The Rapier doesn't have the most range. You have to get pretty close for it to be very effective. And there you see we managed to get a good heavy attack lunge. Good read on his attack, and we counter with the heavy. Give him a few pokes as he tries to block to survive. And we break his stamina to finish him off. Now I ended up coming up around the corner here into this area. I saw a lot of players, and one of them was actually flagged for PvP. So we engage with this guy here, and he kind of gets a little bit of a jump on me. I didn't really notice him at first, and he starts putting the pressure into us. I go for the Fire Staff teleport. He is hurting with that Great Axe, though. We managed to get the heal off right away, and then I give him the Rapier heavy attack into the evade backwards. Just kind of a strong poke and a quick evade. He actually takes quite a lot of damage from that combo, jumps off the edge, a couple pokes, and we finish him off. You guys can really see the damage on this build. We are very squishy ourselves, but even if the opponent has heavy armor on, we can very quickly tear through their defenses. And then I ended up heading towards the keep in the middle of this area here, the contested PvP keep, and I started flipping the flag to see if anyone would show up, and very quickly, actually, a green player shows up, and he's by himself. He's rifling us at a distance. We go for that Fire Staff teleport. We go for the Rapier gap closer through him. He actually interrupts us on that. A good heavy attack read there as he comes in to attack us. Just start feeding him those light attacks. He's holding block. Now we're just going to give him the heavy attacks to break that block, and there you see we break the block. A couple pokes, he goes down, and we're just gonna eat some food and wait a little bit longer. And look at this, here comes green in force. We got 4, it looks like, players coming through the doorway there. I know we're definitely not going to stand open field with those guys and last very long. More than 4, 5 players plus, not getting a good opportunity to even look at them. 1 player comes up the staircase. He's kind of overextending. 1 Fire Staff light attack to dot him up. The Fire Staff gap close to go through him. We get him with the bleed from Tondo as well. There's the Rapier gap close. Unfortunately, this guy with the hammer just absolutely destroying us. We're unable to stick that combo out, but that was a really good opportunity. Look, he jumps down. We actually get a few pokes into him. Get him with the light attack on the staff, but we very quickly are finding ourselves surrounded from every angle. I'm assuming once the keep flagged, people just ran here that were flagged. So if you guys are looking for PvP, go flip the flag in one of these keeps. You'll definitely attract some attention. And here you can see we are just giving them the kite business. The Rapier, such a good weapon with that evade skill. Also giving us stamina back so we can get even more rolls than people might expect from us. We stall until the Fire Staff teleport, unfortunately knocked down in the middle of that teleport there. We just keep kiting back, reset our supplies. I try to go for the bleed off the Rapier there, but I cancel it a little too early with the evade. Go for the gap close through them just to get a little bit more spacing and distance, and a nice little poke with the Fire Staff. These guys are right on my tail, though. You can see they're just kind of pulling me in with their attacks. We got that Fire Staff teleport. We managed to go right through them. And there's that direction change that is so important for survival in PvP. It's not that we're so much faster than these guys, it's that we can very quickly change our location. And there you see we get a nice poke, gap close through with the Rapier there into the backstab. 1 player goes down to our pressure. We're actually taking a lot of damage ourselves. The other player almost going down too. We might have been able to actually stick that out. And again, they interrupt my teleport. I go for a couple more rolls, break a little bit more distance, and we get the teleport through. There's the gap close with the Rapier. Unfortunately, we didn't get the positioning behind him, and he hits us with that charge too. We're just going to go for a little bit of a kite. There's a lot of players up top shooting at us here too, so this is not really the best location. I think we're doing our best that we can, but we got a lot of pressure from these green players, and the 2 axe fighters here just following us around the corner. Sorry, one of them's got a hammer. We go for the gap close through. Again, just applying those bleeds. Get a good backstab on that player with the Rapier gap close into the evade light attack. Unfortunately, a lot of pressure coming from these guys. Still getting blasted from up top here. And I don't think we should have taken this height. Perhaps maybe not the best decision. We've got another player here. I try to go for pressure on him. He unfortunately gets healed by the healer. We're taking a lot of damage too. And they knock us back into the finish. And that was the end of that run. Nonetheless, though, that was a really fun fight. And a pretty satisfying few kills to get without dying there in one run. And now we're just heading back to the keep. This was a little later on. I decided I need to come back to this keep and keep trying to pull players here, and we sit on the flag. 2 green players come in, and they start giving me the business. We get a good Fire Staff gap close there. Good pressure on this guy. Reading his hammer attack, we just hold the heavy, give him the poke after his hammer. Great damage into him, and he falls in the corner here. We're just going to quickly finish him off, roll through this guy to get out of that corner, and this player right away trying to go for the res. We just go for that heavy attack to make sure we get the distance to poke through. We get the kill on that guy. The other player here at about half health, we Fire Staff gap close through him, go for the Rapier gap close as well, and a beautiful backstab combo. He goes down too. Unfortunately, the 3rd player coming in, and he knocks us down before we can get the finish on that other player. We've got one last fight for you guys here. This is a little bit of an older clip before we had the proper backstab on our Rapier gap closer. That being said, we still got some nice kills here. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the build. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it. Opinions, thoughts, do you like it? Do you think that there are some improvements we could make? That's a big thing I've got my eyes open for in the future. Of course, we've got a link to a little bit more gameplay if you guys want to see that down below in the description. We do top 5 PvP battles for ESO, and I'm hoping to start doing it for New World as well. So if you guys have awesome fights from either game that you want to see featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Check out my website, KristoferESO.com, for your ESO needs. And of course, I'm going to be making a New World website for you guys too. That will be coming very soon for everyone. Give me a follow on Twitch if you guys want to watch that live gameplay. And of course, follow me on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with what's going on with me. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They can give you better ping to your favorite games. They're free to try for the first month. A link down below in the description for you guys. And then last but certainly not least, a massive thank you and shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I couldn't do this job, so thank you everybody so much for supporting. Thank you everybody so much just for tuning in and watching. It is so exciting that people are getting super into New World. I mean, I know it's a new game, but the hype is real and I'm having a ton of fun playing it. I hope that you guys also enjoy my future New World content. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great night, everyone.